The story comes from Ethan, an avid hiker who never backed down from an adventure, no matter how remote or eerie. On a chilly autumn evening, he decided to embark on a solo trip into the deep woods of northern Maine. He'd heard whispers about an old abandoned cabin hidden somewhere in those woods, a place long forgotten, rumored to have a dark history. Locals would warn curious travelers to avoid it, claiming the cabin was cursed. Ethan shrugged off these stories, eager for the challenge and thrill of spending a night there alone. By the time he found the cabin, the sun was setting, casting an orange glow through the trees. The structure was small, barely visible among the towering pines, and looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Its wooden walls were weathered, the windows broken, and the door hung slightly ajar as if inviting him in. Despite the uneasy feeling growing in his stomach, Ethan pushed forward, convincing himself that it was just an old, forgotten cabin. Inside, the air was thick and damp, carrying an odd, stale smell. Dust coated every surface, and spider webs clung to the walls like gossamer shrouds. Ethan set up his sleeping bag in one corner, the floor creaking beneath his weight. He pulled out his flashlight, noticing strange markings etched into the wooden walls, symbols he didn't recognize carved hastily as if in desperation. His pulse quickened, but he brushed it off, thinking they were probably left by previous visitors hoping to spook the next person. As night fell, an unsettling silence took over the forest. Ethan could hear the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl outside, but inside the cabin, there was a different kind of quiet, a kind that felt alive and oppressive. He tried to sleep, but the silence was too loud, filled with an almost tangible presence, as though the darkness itself was watching him. Every creak of the old cabin sent shivers down his spine. Then, sometime around midnight, he heard it, a faint tapping. It was coming from the door. His heart raced, and he froze, straining to listen. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, echoing through the small room. He told himself it must be a branch, but he knew the sound wasn't coming from outside. It was on the inside, right there with him. Trembling, he shone his flashlight towards the door, but nothing was there, just the empty room and the suffocating darkness. He lay back down, trying to shake off the fear, but then he heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the opposite corner of the cabin. They were heavy, as if someone, or something, was making its way toward him. Ethan's blood ran cold as he clutched his flashlight, his eyes darting around the room. The footsteps stopped, and silence fell once more. Just when he thought it was over, he felt a chilling sensation, like icy fingers brushing against his shoulder. In a panic, he jumped up, scanning the cabin with his flashlight. But it was empty. No signs of anyone, or anything, that could have touched him. Desperately, he tried to rationalize it, telling himself it was just his mind playing tricks. He lay back down, praying for sleep to take him, but his heart refused to calm down. The cabin felt smaller now, as if the walls were closing in, trapping him with whatever unseen force lingered in the shadows. As dawn approached, Ethan couldn't take it anymore. The cabin felt like a cage, and he had to get out. He grabbed his belongings and bolted through the door, refusing to look back. When he finally reached civilization, he told his friends about the cabin, but none believed him. They chalked it up to a sleepless night and an overactive imagination. But Ethan knew what he felt, what he saw or didn't see in that cabin. To this day, he refuses to set foot in those woods again. Locals still talk about the cursed cabin, warning others to stay away. Some say it's haunted by the spirit of someone who died there long ago. Others think it's something far older, a presence that feeds off fear. But if you're brave enough or foolish enough to venture there, remember, once you step inside, you may never leave alone. As Ethan's story fades into daylight, you might wonder if these encounters are merely the product of imagination, or if there are real dark forces hiding in the shadows. Want to hear more chilling tales like this? Stay with us, and perhaps someday you'll have a story of your own to share.